I don't think I ever really believed everything.
And I realized that quite a few of the things didn't hold water.
The actual religions were man-made from wherever.
God? Who's God? What's God?
I think skepticism really is the first step.
Scientific zest and zeal for the real world.
That was it. I was an atheist from then on.
And the second one is like the caste and the class system. So by definition, if you're Brahmin, you're in like...
Hi, I'm Rad.
Hi, I'm Susan, and this is our friend Abi, who is now going to tell us about his road to atheism.
Abi, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. What is your basic background as far as religion is concerned, as you were raised and your parents?
You were born where?
I was born in Chennai, India, or as they used to call it, Madras, which I prefer myself. Mm-hmm. My religious background was Hinduism, and particularly Brahmin. So apparently by birth I am a Brahmin.
Could you tell us a little about that type of religion, please?
Brahmin is a bit of a it has like two sects to it. One is the religious one, where you worship a particular number of gods, particular subsection of gods of Hinduism. And the second one is like the caste and the class system. So by definition, if you're a Brahmin, you're in like the upper middle class. And I've never really got into the entire thing at all, to be honest, and not at all even to this day. Mm-hmm. And I never really made any of the distinctions that exist within the religion.
Okay, before we get into that, I'd like to know your parents, were they very religious?
My parents were quite religious. Mm-hmm. My mother is still very religious. She, from time to time, whenever I talk to her, says things like, I'm going to pray for you. I'm going to go to this temple and do this ceremony for you. Mm-hmm. And Abby, also, please pray to this God. So one of the gods she's fond of telling me to pray to is the Baba, as they call it. And
why? Why that particular one?
I didn't really ask her to that extent, in the sense that if I were to say it, it would give it away that I'm so far non-religious. Mm-hmm. And, well, I kind of palliate and avoid conflict on purpose.
Abby, let me ask you this question, okay? When you were very young, mm-hmm. At what age did you start to have this conflict of interest, or found that it was not what you thought it would be? When did you start that road to atheism? Remember the age?
I never had an aha moment or any of that at all. Mm-hmm. It was a very gradual thing, right from age 4, I would say, 4 or 5 maybe.
Very interesting. Mm-hmm.
So to give it a bit of a context, I went to a school where religious prayers were mandatory, and every day you had to go to the prayer hall, show up, sing the prayers. Mm-hmm. Each day of the week had a different prayer, and all the students were to assemble at the prayer hall. Girls and boys are segregated. Mm-hmm. We have to clasp our hands, close our eyes, and recite this prayer. And I always wondered, what is it that they were doing? I was a little bit of a slow learner at the time. I never really knew what exactly about biology or science or physics or any of that at all. But I knew to an extent that something about this was quite ridiculous. Mm-hmm. And from time to time, I would just open my eyes and just let my hands go loose. Right. And the teachers would stand as a watch person, and they'll be like
and
ready to...
And they would see you
yes.
to let go and open your eyes.
And then they'll come and tap me.
What would happen?
Yeah, they'll come and tap me on the shoulder, and that means that you can close it back again, kiddo.
Was it to a different god every week? Every day, or...
I was very good at memorizing, so to speak, but I never really knew what they meant. Mm-hmm. And it might even be due to my mild strain of Asperger's to an extent. Mm-hmm. So all I was good at was pretty much seeking patterns, mm-hmm. and not necessarily knowing what the meaning behind certain words or things meant at all.
Right. Yes. And there are certain things that I think with myself that feel the same way.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, when you started to get older, when you questioned that, did you question your parents or teachers that you got a reaction that might have been negative?
Like I said, I had a mild. I was the mild version of Asperger's almost.
Right. You did
and
say
I
that.
was not very sociable at all.
Which is a true symptom of Asperger's.
Yes, and I pretty much kept all these thoughts to myself. So I never questioned anyone about it. But at the same time, one of the things I gained solace from was that I would read a
Yes.
heck of a lot.
Good, that's
just to
right.
know that what other people were like, because I never really made that many friends in school at all. And another thing I was very, very extremely good at, and I still am, is mathematics.
Mathematics, right.
And partly the thing that connects these things is that it's pattern seeking, advanced version of pattern seeking. And when it came to religious texts, for instance, they had meaning behind all the stuff, and I was never really good at deciphering meaning per se. I never really was good at reading a piece of text and knowing what it meant. And for the most part, I kept it to myself, even almost to this day.
What subjects did you cover in school?
The main subjects covered predominantly in most schools in India is a kind of like a general theme where you can either take science, some form of commerce, or arts are like almost non-existent. And I took the science section. So I had English, history, maths, physics, chemistry, biology,
Astronomy?
computers.
Anything in there?
No astronomy.
Okay, but you did have physics.
Yes.
All right. And in physics, did you were there any thing that you found interesting about that? Was it basically the macro or the micro? In other words, were you doing quantum? Did you get into that at all, or read
No.
about it?
These textbooks were very, very derivative and very, very
Ancient.
predictable. Yes, in the way they explain things, not too interactive at all. But there was, and since it's like that, it almost reads like a telephone book. And there was one little section about quantum mechanics, and of course, most of us didn't really understand it at the time.
Well, a lot of people.
Still don't.
Yes.
That is true.
Sure. There wasn't any class for religion per se. No.
They didn't teach you the various myths and things of Hinduism. I mean,
They would drop, many of the teachers were extremely religious, and they would drop these things like randomly during even science subjects, for instance. And also there was a music class where some of the songs taught was at least a prayer-like or daily.
Psalms, like psalms.
Yeah.
Right. Psalms, pretty much.
Yes.
That would be up until at least the age of 14, where I never really communicated with too many people. And after that, it was a fantastically extra amount of effort each time I had to communicate with someone. Even say, for instance, making eye contact, those were like none of that
Which
came naturally.
Asperger's?
Sure. I had one, my first girlfriend around the age of 16, and she was a devout Hindu.
Aye.
And of course, if it's she, there's an extra pressure on the family, from the family side, for her to stay religious. And she was, as far as I could remember, very, very religious.
so that her offspring would be religious.
Yeah.
And the commodity fact that if she's married to, and I'm sure it was an arrangement, that was important to have as what are the
Absolutely.
credentials that you are religious? I
And the
understand.
entire ceremony itself is very, very religious in tone, the marriage ceremonies they have. Although it's kind of understood that even an atheist can have such a ceremony, and it's like secularized, and you just do it to palliate your parents.
Yes, and the female is the center of
So
any weddings. That,
Did you come out as an atheist in India? Because obviously you're not there anymore. You're here in America.
Right.
Or did you did coming to America sort of free you a little, or how did that work?
In schooling, you meet fellow students that were of this persuasion, so we say.
Oddly enough, I couldn't really find. I made quite a number of friends ever since I started at least putting in an effort to interact with other people. And I couldn't really find anyone who was interested in talking about the subject at all. But at the same time, I never really felt like I would need to come out at all, partly because it was such a gradual level of understanding, and also I never really had any religious thoughts at all to begin with.
Right, there was never that type of
Shock at all.
there. Yeah, that's interesting.
There were a number of religious holidays, for sure, and each one of them pretty much had some sort of
Religious connection to it.
More than religious connection, you also had to do some sort of ceremonies and festivities.
Right.
The Denali, right? Or
Yeah.
is that what celebrate?
Diwali?
Yeah.
Diwali, yes.
Yes.
Diwali is too.
Isn't that in the fall or? Yeah.
Around October, November.
October.
So the thing I can remember the most about these festivals was that the smell of incense, which I disliked, and flowers, which I had an allergy
Oh dear.
for.
Oh boy.
And so automatically, every single one of these festivals
What's the
has
negative
flowers and incense, and I have a negative reaction because. Yes, in a very, very basic way, for sure. So when I was in the prayer halls, for instance, I would open my eyes and these teachers would come and knock me in the back or tap me in the back. And I wonder, like, why, if this is such an important thing and there is some all-knowing something out there, why
doesn't
aren't
he
they
do it? Yeah.
That's right. Why shouldn't they close their eyes?
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, all of a sudden they have some special
Why shouldn't the deity?
sanction or relief from God is saying that they don't have to close their eyes to keep their eyes on the
Pretty
on
much.
the thing.
And it didn't.
Didn't add up. It didn't add
It
up.
didn't add up at all.
That's right.
I mean, if you had doubts, could you?
Or with any books that might have come to.
I couldn't really remember reading books by atheists per se till I was maybe 16 or 17 when I first discovered, I guess, what you can call as the four horsemen of the apocalypse, so to
Yes,
speak.
yes. That's on the internet.
Yeah. So I kind of went through that route in terms of how just finding kindred spirits that, I'm not the only one feeling like that at all.
You probably didn't even know the word atheist existed for a while.
Yes, no, I knew the word atheist existed, but I was very bad at knowing meanings behind word. Very good at memorizing a lot of stuff, but not good at
Understanding the meanings
understanding.
behind it, comprehension.
Yes.
Okay. Now that's important for that you were able to go and watch this on the internet, listen to the Four Horsemen debating and going through these, and listen to the excuses of the religious people, and then you come to the conclusion based listening to that it just didn't make any sense. The excuses, right? For that reason.
Are there any Indian versions of the Four Horsemen? Is there any known atheists within India?
Within India, I'm pretty sure there are a number of them, but I haven't really looked that up yet.
Yeah.
I should probably. I don't know that the Indian economist, the Nobel Prize winner, what's his name? Sen.
Right.
Amartya Sen, he's an atheist. So
That's very interesting. Well, that's why he has a Nobel Prize.
Yes.
And that Nobel Prize is in
economics.
economics. Very interesting. So there are not too many apologists, so that's the word I was looking for, that would defend religion and have their excuses that, well, there are, but you never believed in any of that. The excuses just didn't make much sense.
No, not at all.
All right.
In India, there's a group called the Atheist Center. They're in southeast India. I forget exactly where they are. And it's a monstrous operation. It's like a huge college campus. And they have thousands and thousands of people who belong to that group. And they do some wonderful work. For example, there's a major problem of children getting glaucoma, whatever, with their eyes. When they get born, they have their eyes.
Get what?
They get blind when they don't put...
Cataracts?
I don't know, anyway. And they have done, I don't know, 10, 20,000 of these in a period of years, and they have a lot of doctors that volunteer to do this free of charge. But one of the most interesting things that they do, they have 300 magicians, and they've trained them to go out into the public and show the public all the miracles and things that the Hindu priests, or whatever you call them, do to show them it's a fake.
Sort of like a huge proliferation of James Randi.
Yes.
That's good. Good point.
And
Good point.
they're all over the place, and it's very, very effective. So they go into a town, and they have a little show, and they have this guy who goes out and does all these little miracles. And he says, no, here's how you do it. It's not a miracle. It's, whatever, it's walking on water or whatever happens.
Right.
And
It's an illusion.
we've had the president, that has been around for almost 75 years. They have a hospital there. I mean, look, it's called the Atheist Center. I don't know the exact town it is in India, but it's a well developed and running for a long time. And they do a lot of wonderful things for the people there.
Yeah.
And they claim there's quite a few atheists around. And they said if they could get out more, they could get even more people, because a lot of people are disillusioned with the religion itself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing there's a lot more severe cases than myself where I didn't have to have any kind of shock at all. But for a lot of people in India, I can tell you for sure that many of them are brought up to believe these things very, very firmly. Only saving grace is that they don't have too many violent behaviors.
Right,
Yes.
right. AKA Catholics.
Do they have blasphemy
This is
laws in India? Because I know there's some in nearby countries, where you don't dare say anything. Because
It's a free speech for the most part. They don't have it per se or written down, but there is
Free speech.
self-censorship going on, a lot of it, for sure. People are scared to offend.
In the world's largest democracy?
Yes, I'm pretty sure.
Amazing.
How is the relationship in your area between the Hindus and the Muslims?
Some of my best friends were Muslims back in Chennai. And as far as I could tell, for the most part, in the south at least, they live peacefully and coexist. Although there is something I did find kind of worrying is that amongst the Muslim population, the proselytization is tremendously high, at least there, and it just seems like a waste to be believing all this stuff. And it's not just if it was Hindu, I'd be criticizing Hindu as well. It's just that don't see what's the point at all.
People will accept whatever they proselytize about. Do you find that Sharia is practiced there?
No, there's no Sharia.
Okay,
At all.
all right. And tell me, what do you think about these this group ISIL, also known as ISIS, that they're able to proselytize and take over a lot of Muslims? I guess there's a lot of built-in anger and hate because of the wars that have gone on there.
Right.
But there are probably other reasons too that they change or convert and want to be involved with this Islamic radicalism.
Right. I definitely think there are other reasons because it doesn't make sense for someone, say, from the United Kingdom who's a doctor and who is feeling quite well off, and all of a sudden renouncing his work and taking up the gun and joining this gang over here. It doesn't add up at all to me, once again, to use that word. And I find that when you have such cases, and the number of them is just not one isolated incident in, say, Birmingham or something.
Yes.
There's a number of them all over from Europe and even a couple from America.
Yeah.
And I find that a lot of journalists kind of do a disservice by painting some sort of relativistic thing. Oh, it's just impoverished people who, that's why they're acting it like this.
That's not true. I know what you mean. I know, and that's unfortunate. They give the wrong picture. If they were to be more accurate as to the reasons why, I think that we can find better solutions in which to contain that type of unfortunate.
Simple. ISIS is most of them are psychopathic murderers with ugly delusions. I think that's about it. I don't want to sit and mince words about them at all. Kind of a reconciliation with them is not really desirable unless it's on extremely strict grounds and they can really show that they want to put down the weapons.
I can see you're passionate about that. That's you see what's going on over there.
Yeah.
I mean, the killing and the way they do, it's most dramatic and most unfortunate. But they are getting a lot of countries and a lot of people are starting to realize that and become against their ways of doing things now.
We'll
Because
have to see what happens.
Yeah,
So,
let's see.
did you go to college in India or?
I did my undergrad in India, or bachelor's.
English?
And
English?
I did that in digital media.
Oh.
Kind of like more of digital art per se. And I did my graduate studies here in America, which I started in 2013 and finished about half a year ago. And that was in a combination of English and history, mainly in the humanities, so to speak.
If you can stay here in America, if it's possible, and we have some problems. The immigration law is very problematic due to political involvement.
Yes.
Would you want to do? What would you like to do with that background? Would you want to go into teaching, or exactly what would you think you would be most beneficial for yourself, for your conscience, and also helping others, or go back home doing that? When I say back home, I mean to your former country.
Yeah. Ideally, I'd like to be a writer over here and writer at a newspaper, partly because that kind of suits my aptitude, where you can just write down a story or a report in an hour, file it up, put on a donkey jacket, go to the next meeting or press report or whichever it is.
Okay, and which area would you like to concentrate in doing? What would it be, from theater to science to social? What would be your main point of interest to be able to explain to people different things?
My main area of expertise would be in arts, especially in books and perhaps theater. I could also write quite a bit about mathematics, especially mental mathematics, which I practice almost every day, a couple of hours a day. And I find that in this country, there's a fear of math.
Yes.
And I want to know what
Yes.
is that all about, fear of numbers.
I hate to say it, but I see an equation and my eyes glaze over.
I see a Nobel laureate starting to form over here, and I think that's
You're too
really
kind.
good.
Of course, I have a dear
let's
friend
see.
who's a math professor, so, it evens out.
Yeah.
But
Russians, they say, are very good at mathematics,
Yeah,
including chess.
chess. I like chess too.
Uh-huh.
So there is something about that chess, mathematics,
think-
snooker, billiards, the sort of sports.
I think if,
Positions, angles, and things of that nature, yes.
we taught math better, the children would like it better, and if we encouraged it a little more,
That's right.
instead of encouraging football,
Unfortunately, that's right.
because
But I think you're going to see a diminution as far as interest in football is because of the injuries to the cranial part of
yes,
the body.
yes.
So
But it'll take a while.
it'll take a while, but you'd be surprised. Parents quickly pick up on things of that nature, and hopefully they do it the right way. Unfortunately, they pick up on things that are not necessarily scientifically true, such as vaccinations and things that have occurred in California, or
yes.
staying away from them because they thought that it would cause some
Absolutely.
type of disease.
And mathematics is such a beautiful subject where,
Yes.
say, for instance, without even getting in too much into the science, you can do something like take up Uranus, the planet Uranus,
Yes.
see some of the forces and the relations it has and what kind of effect it's putting out on space, get the numbers down, and you can calculate based on that there is another planet called Neptune
That's
as
right.
well. And
Well, that's Newtonian Newtonian physics right there.
pretty much 400
Which
years
was-
ago. and
That's right,
Yep.
and well, absolutely, and that's very important. That's seeing
So we've been in
things
the
that
age of
actually work.
science for about 400 years.
That's right.
And hopefully we'll transition away from
Renaissance.
these Bronze Age mythologies.
Renaissance starting now. We're in the golden age of a lot of things. Now.
Back to your road. So you came here to America, 2 years ago? And you found us, New York City Atheists?
I moved to New York City a couple of weeks ago, and or more like 3 weeks now. And at least for a good portion of my life, with this mild version of Asperger's, it's not that I wasn't seeking out groups per se, but I really didn't have the inkling to seek out any sort of group or even want to fit in. But ever since I started interacting, and you have to interact quite a bit over here in America and make connections, so to speak.
How did New York City Atheists get there?
I thought, well, if I'm going to be in New York City and if I'm going to make a difference over here and contribute something meaningfully, I would look up one of the subjects which I at least have some knowledge about. And I looked up New York City New York City science kind of programs on meetup.com.
Yes.
And New York City Atheists popped up, and I thought, well, I've never been involved in one of these, and let's just give it the old-fashioned try.
Very good.
So you came to see the physics professor.
Yes.
Yes.
From where I want to start out at.
Yeah.
Did you understand him?
I understood the mathematics whenever he's talking about that, the figures, and I wanted to ask a little bit more about it, partly because I was wondering how. Well, I'm learning mathematics on my own, and I was wondering maybe how is it possible for someone who's learning it on their own, like say just how they would learn a language on their own, to just keep moving up without having to have a tutor, because
I'm sure there are books and study courses that did that. And one of the examples you have, one of the ways they calculate the weight of a planet is by math.
Yeah.
They can understand by the orbit and the pull. They can understand this. The pull has a certain gravitational pull, and it keeps another, say, a moon in a certain orbit based
Yeah.
upon the mass of the Earth. They can tell how far it is. They can tell even the weight of it is.
Well, it's said that math is the language of the universe.
It's universal, like music, By the way, a little scientific fact for you: the Earth weighs 6 septillion tons.
That's a lot of zeros.
Okay,
6 septillion tons.
6 septillion tons.
Boy, Superman really must be strong.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Yeah, I think they got the 6,000 years and 6 septillion tons mixed up.
Yes.
Or 4,000 years. What? 4,000?
No,
6,000.
it's 6,000.
Yeah, they have decimal point problems.
Yes.
Well, this is interesting. I've had a good conversation with you. Tell me
absolutely.
something. Just one other question I'd like to know about is that you found the New York City Atheists interesting because they have the meetup groups. And have you been to any of the brunches?
No, not yet.
Okay,
Oh,
when
well,
you get a
there's
chance,
one on
you have to
Sunday.
go to that. And this is also
Absolutely.
important for the audience to understand. The brunches are every second Sunday of the month. And what we have with that is that we have a distinguished speaker come over. And there are professors in different scientific disciplines, and with other type of activities, not necessarily always science, but school problems, separation of church and state, et cetera,
Or history.
of which we do in history.
We had a lecture once on
That's right.
Newton,
Yeah.
which
Okay.
was fascinating.
Very fascinating. I think you're going to find that
And Einstein, too.
very
Yes.
interesting. Okay.
I mean, well, sounds extremely agreeable. What would you want? On one hand, the burning bush, or on the other hand, Einstein, Newton,
That's right.
Spinoza, and the rest.
Exactly.
It's time to put away childish things like Bronze Age mythologies and grow up as a species if
Absolutely.
we want to boldly go out there one day.
Yes. Is there anything that you would like to say to the audience? Maybe people who from India or other places you want to give a message to, think that you feel is important for them to understand?
Well, I just say that just have the little bit of courage to think for yourself. And of course, the courage comes in partly because when you start questioning what you know
Yes.
or what you believe in, you might even plunge into a little bit of despair and self-doubt and self-criticism and the rest. And it might be inseparable from living as a free human being. But at the same time, the rewards of it are much more worth it than what you get out of
Yeah.
the religious text. So
Definitely.
I'd say that just say it in your head that buy the ticket, take the ride, as Hunter S. Thompson would say, and
And go with it.
yeah,
Yes.
pretty much.
Thank you very much. I certainly appreciate that.
Thank you.